Welcome to In the Gutter, a podcast that is all comics, all bangers, all the time, with story expert Lonnie Diane Rich and superhero scholar Joshua Unruh. One of the hosts has read almost no superhero comics, and the other has read almost all of them. We'll let you sort out which is which. And now, In the Gutter.
All right, so the story that I wanted to tell you this week is the story of how I achieved peak white lady over the holidays.
Unexpected achievement unlocked. Cannot wait to hear.
Achievement unlocked. It's so cute. And I will put a picture. I have visual aids. I'll put a picture in the show notes. But anyway, so it's like Christmas Eve. You know, my kid came in from Columbus, kind of last minute. Was a decision we decided to do. I didn't really have any. I don't usually do like a big Christmas thing, but I had a couple of stockings. I was like, let me go fill the stockings. So one of the things that my husband Ian needs are very specific coffee mugs. He's a big guy, so he needs to have like a big handle, and then he needs to for the rim to be like a certain bit wide, and for the thing to be a certain bit tall. And the thing is that I haven't been able to find like the right mugs for him. So I went and I found this one mug, and it was really cute, and it said coffee, and it was absolutely perfect. And I figure it says coffee, so that's perfect because that's what it's for. It's for his morning coffee. And then I found another one that had like a face of a guy on it, and it said "Keep making progress." Right. So I got that one. I was like, oh my god, this is perfect. He's gonna love it. And he's also that kind of guy. He's that kind of guy. He's always making progress. He's always working on himself. That's how he is. Right. So I figure, knocking it out of the park. I get chocolate candy and stuff for the stockings. I fill them all up. I've got socks and, gloves and stuff for my kid and all this stuff. So we get Christmas morning, and as Ian is unpacking his stocking, suddenly something clicked in my head. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. And he pulls out the coffee mug, and it's perfect and cute and wonderful, and that's great. And then he goes back in and gets the second mug. And as he's pulling it out, I'm like, I think I bought you a Black Power mug. And then as he holds it up, there's the face of a man, and it says "Keep making progress." And I realize that it is definitely a black man, and that the progress we're talking about is the Black Power progress, right? Which I'm absolutely totally into. So, but it wasn't an intentional thing. And so me, as soon as that starts happening, I'm doing my white lady calisthenics, right? I'm like, okay, let me check. I bought this. I didn't mean to. Does that mean I don't see color? Because I see color. I understand that is part of the whole beauty of a human is everything that they are, and yada, yada, yada. Okay, I've got that. Did I buy it from a company that is black owned? Because I figure if it's black owned, then it's okay that I buy this mug, So I'm doing all of this in my head. And I was like, well, in this house, and part of this joke is that my kid and my husband both know that I absolutely detest those signs.
Oh, right.
In this house, we live, laugh, love, all of that kind of stuff. I hate that. But I'm in this house, we support Black Power. We love Black Power. We're all for it, And as I'm saying that, part of it is a joke, but part of it is also I'm doing the calisthenics in my head and making sure that I am correct on all of the levels here that I could possibly have done this wrong. And my kid just looks at me and goes, "You are such a white lady, Mom," And I'm like, yeah, of course.
Yeah, checks out.
We know this is true.
What?
Exactly.
And stares in horror.
Legit, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I have done I've been looking up the company, and I cannot find it anywhere. Anywhere. And I'm like, I will bet you anything that this company is owned by two blonde white girls in their early 30s, right?
We just feel really strongly about the movement. So we thought we would make this coffee mug support it. Yeah, that's what it is.
Because I thought it'd be really nice because I really like the design of it because I saw it when I was on a trip somewhere. I can't remember where, but it was I think Africa, maybe. Yeah. So I'm really hoping that the company that I bought it from is black owned. I'm still trying to find that information, but they're nowhere on the internet. So it makes me feel a little bit nervous.
Listeners, I need assistance. I need an embroidered throw pillow done in the most grandma style possible, daffodils around the edges, little vines and shit, that says, "In this house, we support the Black Power movement."
I will absolutely display that proudly all over my house.
I will pay for it, and Lonnie will display it.
All right, everybody, you have been given your assignments, and now our assignment this week is to talk a little bit more about Josh's favorite comic, which has been taking a bit of a battering from me so far.
Yeah, I can't wait to see where we go from here. Also, I've really had this big turnaround where I was like, oh no, I gave Lonnie something she hated. Have I betrayed the all bangers ethos of In the Gutter? And then I was like, no, it's fucking fantastic. Everybody else can just be wrong. It's America.
Everybody else can just be wrong. Also, that is the thing, too.
No,
yes.
That is not an attack.
Bangers
I'm
are
saying
subjective.
there is a certain amount of subjectivity. Yes.
Look, and also, this is Chipperish Media. What is our motto?
Start some shit about Buffy.
It's love what you love, man.
No, I know what it actually is. I know. It's love what you love. That's right.
Love what you love, and absolutely support that. And I am working on my love for Patsy Walker Hellcat.
I'm going to give them this summary, and then I want to talk about it because I feel like we're running up to the places where you might start to get where I'm coming from. So,
okay.
In summary, Snowball Effect Part 3. Patsy has to win her animal companions over to her side. She's got to wrestle a wolf and make it say her name. She's got to apologize to the antlered polar bear whose skin she ripped off, but that's going to take some real mystical shenanigans. Plus, she's got to catch a lemming that bites, all while making nice with a talking stone map and wrecking her car several times in 2 different parallel timelines. Sorta. Magic's weird. In the end, she gets on the right track and then finds a pirate ship trapped in the ice? Actually, a pirate ship might make sense because there be monsters. Monsters who know Patsy is coming and are none too happy about it.
All right, I want to hear your overall response first before I give mine.
Okay, I'm low-hanging fruit. I'm a softball. I'm a meat and potatoes pitch. I still really like it. I mean, in fact, this issue has a couple of the lines of dialogue. In fact, it has the line of dialogue that I can point to and say, and that's the moment that I fell in love with Patsy Walker, is in this issue. Like, because I said in the first one, I've liked her a lot because of all these meta reasons, and I read a bunch of the Avengers stuff she was in, blah, 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 and I kind of went out on a limb and just grabbed this because I liked the art and blah, blah, etc. And then it was this issue I was like, oh no. I'm in love with this fictional character.
This issue specifically. So this is going to be a really important episode of In the Gutter. And I'm very interested in seeing what that is. I imagine that's going to be your favorite part at the end.
It is.
Talk about that.
It is. 100%.
That bit of dialogue. All right, good. All right. So as we know, the first couple of issues were hit or miss, mostly miss for me with Patsy. And in this one, I will say, and I say this a lot, and every single time you tell me, no, you got it, but I have no idea what is going on in this
this
issue.
is the one where you might,
mm-hmm.
like, I've read your notes, you do know what's going on. The fact that it only vaguely coheres together is a feature, not a bug, but everyone's mileage may vary, right? This is that Alice in Wonderland thing we talked about last episode,
right?
That like you got to be in for that kind of stuff, but you do.
That's always rough for me. Mm-hmm. Okay, good. As long as I understand what's going on. So there were moments that I liked. Mostly, I think this is a fever dream. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like those kinds of stories can be very interesting, very full of meaning and metaphor and all of that kind of good stuff. But I just struggle when I can't lock into a consistent world reality. And this story has a lot of things, but it does not have a consistent reality of any kind. Nope. And the thing is, I think like there was a certain point when I was reading this where I was like, I realized that, I recognized that, I honored my struggle, right? I honored that this is a place that does not come easily to me. And I was like, okay, what we're going to do is we're just going to go with it. Like we're just going to ride, So I'm in for the ride. And this is the issue that I've hated the least. And I have to say,
damning with faint praise.
All three. No, I hated it the least out of all three. But there were a couple of moments that I really liked. And the more I thought about them, and this is one of those things, this is like, I love when a story is like gum that you chew that gets more flavor as you go, right? Yeah. And I think that this is an instance of that, because when I first read it, I was a little overwhelmed by all of the what the fuck, right? And so that kind of threw me off. And then the second time I read it, I was like, oh, love this, love that. Like there's a lot of things in there that I think are really great, and I am very excited to talk about it with you.
Okay, fantastic. We'll do this more as we go, but that also, I feel like, really paves the way for issues 4 and 5 as well. So
awesome.
This may retroactively have you appreciating the first couple issues more. If not, we will all survive and start reading some Captain America comics. But
exactly.
If it does work that way, I will not be surprised.
All right, so I have some excellent news for you, Joshua. You're going to be so proud. I have once again discovered within myself the ability to tell the difference between the cover page and the title page.
I'm very excited for you. I also want to renew my insistence that this is largely the Kindle's fault. Okay, like it's as much the Kindle's fault. So.
I don't know that I necessarily, as someone, because here's the thing, is that, like, you know, as much as I consider myself quote unquote new to comic books, at this point, I've been doing the Sandman podcast since April of last year. It's been I think almost 2 years that we've been doing the Sandman podcast. I've been reading these with you. This is our second season. Like, I think at this point, I really can't just sit here and be like, oh, I'm a neophyte anymore, because I'm fucking not. Like, I should know better.
Fair enough.
But I was very proud of myself this week. You know, again, like we were talking about before, a little rusty. I was a little rusty coming back into the podcast, but now I got my wheels on and I'm ready to go. So on the cover page, we have Patsy with her hair fiery and flying out, riding a huge wolf with glowing red eyes through a herd of bunnies with glowing red eyes. Shout out to Anya for anyone who watches Buffy. And there's a horned polar bear with glowing red eyes chasing her. Patsy does not seem in the least concerned at all about this situation, which brings to mind, to me, it feels like an argument about courage versus stupidity. But again, like, I am not completely, like, energetically aligned with Patsy right yet, so my ability to read everything perfectly, like, I'm definitely open to the fact that I could be wrong about that. But I'm just saying, as I looked at this, I was like, courage versus stupidity. This is the visual image for that idea.
Look, when you first start out and just go, yeah, I'm going to fuck with the Avengers in my lab coat, everything will be fine. Maybe not the smartest thing ever. But at the point that you get your costume and you've been running around and you've, you know, been to hell and been a gladiator for Satan himself, there might be a point where you're like, you know, largely I'm going to be okay. Like, it can't be worse than that time.
Well, and we get a little bit of that in this issue, but we're not there yet.
Oblique mention is made of exactly that thing. So, yeah, that's the description of it. And I think it makes Patsy look super badass. I really, like, it's a hardcore cover. Like, it's supposed to be. Including the fact that there are bunnies that are adorable and terrifying at the same time. Shout out to Bunnicula, right? Like, terrifying, but also a cute little bunny. I just really feel like the weirdness of this cover with Patsy's like, it's fine, I got it, is sort of the apotheosis of her, right? Like, my life is loopy, but I can fuck you up if I have to. I'm Patsy Walker Hellcat, you know, so. Also, bit of trivia, I didn't dig it up because it's not really that impressive. The concept is more interesting, but Marvel was doing, the month that this came out, some kind of like ape or monkey related like storyline, or they were just doing these variant covers where the character on the cover was also a baboon or whatever. So there is a version of this where Patsy is a monkey. If anyone wants to look it up, it's good, but it's not like MODOK good. So I didn't want to, you know, I didn't think it would be quite the level that our listeners have come to expect from my blind reveals. But it's good
Well,
because
I'm
it's
definitely gonna
otherwise
have to go
the
in
same
and
cover.
Google search for that. Yeah.
Yeah, you totally should. Everybody should go look. It's fun. It's literally the exact same cover, but she's got monkey face out of the bottom of her outfit. So
I definitely will need to see that. But moving on to the interior art. In the title page, we have Patsy hugging this monstrous wolf that looks to be roughly the size of a 3-story building. Its eyes glowing red, its teeth super sharp, and telling it to say her name. It responds manslayer, and she says, wrong, try again and make it pretty. And the art is great. But I clearly have not reached like the level where I get Patsy. I feel very close. I feel like I'm getting closer to understanding Patsy. But what it brought to mind immediately when I saw it is this guy on TikTok who is at Best Fetch Dog, and he's hilarious. He's like animal rights guy. He's really, but he does this thing where he's like, white women ain't scared of shit. He has this whole thing. And I'll go ahead. I'm going to play some audio from one of those TikToks. It's hilarious. Go find him. Go follow him. He is delightful. But it's hilarious. So here it is.
Whoa. Check out this black wolf discovered in Yellowstone. This thing.
A white woman that walked through Yellowstone Park in some flip-flops and short pants, go up to that big-ass black wolf, pull out some Costco wieners, lure him into the Subaru SUV, take him through Coffee Bean drive-through, get him an extra large puppuccino, put a t-shirt on him that says, I love mama, take him home and say, we just picked him up, and we named him Hudson.
Coming back from Best Fetch Dog, that is hilarious. That is absolutely the energy that I am picking up from Patsy in this cover is that white women ain't scared of shit thing. But immediately after, she has this thing is like 3 stories tall, and my response was like, and then she fits a 3-story tall wolf inside of her car. And the thing is, like, I just want to take a step back and say, first of all, I am the one who says that fiction is not answerable to reality, and also we are in Alaska with magical bears that have antlers, and when their skin gets pulled off, it's glitter, right? Like, why am I focusing on this dumb little detail of like, how did she fit that dog into her car? It's ridiculous.
I love that you did that specifically. I had not even thought about this, but I wrote a Viking fantasy novel that has a giant wolf monster in it who, in the true nature of mythology, is not consistently sized. Like that was on purpose by me, and somebody who reviewed it like gave me an Amazon rating pointed that out, and I was like, good Lord, people actually read and pay attention. So it's just funny because I did that on purpose, and I think that they're kind of doing that too. Like, again, it's that fever dream,
it's
Alice
magical.
in Wonderland. Right.
It's a magical, glowy wolf that speaks. Why am I worried about its consistent sizing? Like, no, this is a criticism that is actually of me. Like, I am not, it's just that I started writing those notes and I was like, how did she fit it into the car? And I'm like, what am I
concerned with?
This is not a comic book that is like gritty reality. I mean, this is clearly out there, and I am resistant. I am resisting the Patsy Walker energy, and I think the problem here is me. So in talking to the story response, wait.
You remind me, this is, okay, your reaction to this wolf reminds me of a story that I heard Mark Hamill tell about Harrison Ford when they were in Star Wars. That, like, they come out of the trash compactor, and Luke's hair is dry suddenly. And Mark Hamill, is like, whatever, he's like 18, 19 years old, like, and he's like, continuity people, like, I'm really worried about this, like, my hair was sopping wet like in the last scene, and now it's completely dry. I'm really worried that people are gonna, notice. And Harrison Ford, who's a little bit older than him and Carrie Fisher, like, comes over and he's like, listen, kid, if they notice the difference in your hair, we're in a lot of fucking trouble. It ain't that kind of movie.
Oh my God, that is absolutely the line. Yeah. I want you, whenever I pull this bullshit, I want you to say, hey, Lonnie, it ain't that kind of movie.
It ain't that kind of movie.
All right, so here in my story response, in the notes, it's just, I have no idea what's going on. Every time I tell you, in every time we've done this, and I say I have no idea what's going on, then I go through and I explain everything that I saw and that I read, and you're like, yeah, you're getting it, and I'm like, how is it possible that I'm getting it? Because none of this makes sense to me.
Look, there's some. I'm going to tell you, there's some details that you read differently than I would read them, of course. But there is like, this is a weird magic-y story. Like, there's room for ambiguity in there.
It is weird.
But the broadly, like, you're at least following the beats. Now, why? The question of why is any of this happening? No, that's not. It ain't that kind of movie, right?
It ain't that kind of movie, kid, right? All right, so we start with this whole thing, right? There's this moment, that's one of the moments that I really liked. You knew to ask for your name, right? So you knew she was going to get me with that, give me identity stories. I'm absolutely in. So this is like the access point for me for Patsy. This is the moment where I was like, oh, okay, so we're doing identity stories. Love it, love it, love it. Let's go. So when she met the women, right, they stopped her before she named herself.
Yes.
Which is a moment that I didn't really like grok onto in the original when we first talked about it. But now I went back and I looked at it again. I was like, hey, they're doing a thing, right? So they stopped her before she could name herself, and said, a name is never a simple matter. And then they named her double-clawed cat full of red hellfire with her head against the wind and comes not quietly from the great sea road, right? Which seemed like a joke. Right? Like it was just like kind of a slap at Patsy and making fun of also the way that some indigenous cultures will name people and things. And it becomes a deeply meaningful, but sometimes a little bit long, name. So then we have Patsy responding with, any neophyte knows you have to ask for your name, right? So she's listening. You know, even though she does not appear to be listening to anything, when she comes into to the wolf, she's like, any neophyte knows. Even though when she was back with the women, she did not know. But that shows that she was actually paying attention and listening to and respecting them. Dig it. Totally dig that.
Okay, there's some different ways to read that a little bit. Okay. Names are not a lot different, but like, and this may be me giving more competency points to Patsy than you're prepared to at this point. But again, because of the nature of her life and her powers, like she runs into weird magic-y shit all the time. Yeah. And one thing that's fairly consistent across cultures, across, thousands of years, is that like names are vitally important, but both in a mundane way, but also like I got to take my passport to get on the cruise ship, or my social security card, like in a mundane way, but in a magical way. Like your true name, capital T, capital M, like that's how you command demons, is knowing their name. That's how you can call them to command. Like, those things are so, because she's this is one of those like, well, I know not to touch the live wire, kind of things. Right. So I do think she actually knew about the name, and like that's to be aware of names. So as soon as they called it out, she was like, got it. Right, I got it.
Okay.
But, and again, to read it backwards, I think that's part of why she was being so short with them, because she was like, I basically get it, just be specific, which none of them were specific about. But here she is paying attention when she needs to know. She knows.
Yeah. I like that. I like that. And we have the wolf names her Manslayer and then calls her by the exact name that the women gave her. So it knows her name. And they said that if a magical creature calls her name and she answers, their power becomes hers, right? So here we have, I guess, the wolf's power is now hers, although like what the wolf's power specifically is and how that has translated to Patsy, I was not clear. Is that in this?
They're going to hang around.
Did I miss it?
Basically, the animal companions become sidekicks. Like, they stay with her. So they are there to do things. So their power
becomes hers in the fact that it's not transitioning to her, but they are with her and they're going to fight for her. All right, all right. Okay, so they're driving through the tundra. And Patsy starts philosophizing, which was very unexpected, and I loved it. I thought it was great. She takes exception to the title of manslayer. She says she's never killed anyone before. And the wolf answers, your kind dies in many ways and for many reasons. And she argues that dead is dead. It's like trying to unsee something. You can't. Once it's happened, it's a part of you forever. And I was like, okay, awesome. Read that 2 or 3 times and was like, Patsy is doing some shit here, right? And of course she follows it up with, that's why I never set foot in a karaoke bar. But still, Like, I get the need to make the joke, to finish with the joke when you're talking. But it's so funny because it feels like a trauma conversation, or at least a conversation about how the things that happen to you become part of you.
Yeah.
And you will never be a person that didn't happen to. And that was one of the first conversations I had with my therapist when I was very, very like deep in my traumatic experience, was that my therapist was like, yeah, you are never going to be a person that this didn't happen to. So you just have to accept that, and you have to allow for that and let that be part of your existence. And so I really loved that she was having this discussion at that level with a magical wolf in an SUV on the tundra in Alaska. Like, all of that together, I was absolutely in. Okay, then we move into the fever dream. And this is all the stuff where I'm like, I'm really not sure. And I read it a couple of times, and I think I've missed stuff. So, like, fill in any gaps if I've missed anything. But I was doing okay up until the car crash. The stuff with the wolf was okay. I was starting to get a sense of what was going on. Then they start driving. She crashes the car into a black thing, which I came to realize like a tree at the edge of a forest. And she hits her head. Then she goes to sleep next to the wolf. Then she wakes up and chases a lemming into a clearing where she is very, very cold and meets a woman who is basically like a ghostly constellation mirror of herself. Like the constellation ghost looks a lot like Patsy, and they have them in this mirrored stance.
Yeah.
Where they look a lot like each other. So she was talking about death right before hitting the tree. She snuggled up to the wolf and went to sleep in the freezing cold with a head injury. So I'm like, oh, she's dead. Like, she has transitioned into the other world or whatever. Not that she seemed like she was in the normal world before that, but anyway, we'll just keep moving. So she's told to apologize to the powerful companion that she left behind, which was the horned bear. And she says, I'm not really the one you want to send to any kind of underworld. It never works out. But she already seems to be in an underworld, so I don't know. She's also chewing gum called lethal citrus, which feels so significant because the ghost keeps saying, I smell oranges, I smell lemon. And then Patsy eventually says, I'm chewing gum. And she shows lethal citrus. And it is like a panel just for her hand holding lethal citrus. Does that have some significance? Like, is that a brand in the Marvel Universe? Is there anything? There's nothing to it.
Okay, I don't want to say there's nothing to it. But I think that this is one of the more particularly difficult to entirely parse with the information we're given. So like, right. I think that there's a lot of stuff this could be, and a lot of different ways that it could matter, right? Like, so and one thing, I don't want to like over deepen this comic book, but I do actually appreciate that they're doing a bunch of like fairy tale magic stuff and saying may or may not have an explanation, draw your own conclusions. Like, does not hold our hand in a really different way than like Morrison doesn't hold our hand in JLA, right? Like, it's the same kind of like, you'll get it, come on, but like it just the mouth feel of it, I guess, is really different, even if it's kind of the same thing, right? I don't have a better
no, I like it.
So I'm really torn, honestly, on whether the spirit that looks just like her is it like a great spirit of the North that took her form to have a conversation with her? Because again, they make such a big deal about the temperature drop, because I'm sure it wasn't warm before, but it gets particularly cold,
Yeah.
And it reminds me that like when she first changed into her costume to fight the antlered bear, she mentioned how cold it was. And is that just because she shrugged out of her civilian clothes, or is that a thing when the magic happens up here? It's because I feel like that's when she mentioned her wardrobe with the 7 women too, is that she was saying it's so cold here. And there's again, a mystical center. So is it that? Is it her higher self? Because that might be a thing, like your higher self that just understands things at a different level and is like, you kind of low-key fucked this up. Go.
Is she dreaming? Is she
or
dead?
Is she? I know she's not dead. I know she's not dead. Because the rest of the story happens. Like, she's not, and the wolf is there.
But she says right before this, you can be undead. You can
That's
like, once
true.
you've died, you can become undead.
Okay.
And so in this moment, I'm like,
okay, I should speak to that specifically. Remember, she trigger warning for self-harm. She killed herself after she saw the face of Satan. went to hell, and it went poorly. That's the reference she's making. You can't send me to any kind of underworld. And then came back, right? So I think, and other people she knows have done not the same thing, but, similar things, right? Yeah. So I think that's part of the undead conversation, but also part of the undead conversation is specifically tied to broken hearts. Right? Because what I want to take a step back to the wolf and her, because broken heart, right? Right. And dead is dead. That's for sure. And then the wolf's like, dead. That's not true. And it's just really interesting because, like you kept saying, philosophical discussion, which I think is right on, because they don't agree, but they're not arguing, and they almost seem to hand the point of view, a certain point of view, back and forth between them. Because he's calling her manslayer, but she's never murdered somebody, and then she's saying, well, there's lots of ways to die, and he's like, no, that isn't. It's just like very multi-layered. So anyway, I don't think she's dead because she doesn't have to come back from it, which is kind of a like, I'm just, there's a meta thing there, but also like in the story. Also, I don't think you say this magical world feels kind of like underworldy to you, and I think I get what you mean, but I think it's more like overworld. Like this is the most real Alaska, right? Like she's not in normal Alaska, but she's not in Alaska either. Like it's the augmented reality of magic, right? There's more going on than we can perceive with our senses, and Patsy is now so deep into it, because of the one sense that got her started that way, and then she's given a job. So I think that she's more like taking steps into a wider world or a wider Alaska more than it's some other, like Irish mythology. There was a lot of talk about the terrain of Tirnalia, the other world. And if you think real hard about it, whatever information you get, it's basically Ireland flipped. Right? Like it's, that's the vibe. And I think that's the kind of like fairy tale mythology vibe. Yeah. Yeah. Except it's not a whole other place. It's more like your eyes are open to the things that were going on all around you all the time anyway.
Interesting. Yeah. I think metaphorically that is a really, really interesting place to kind of play in. All right. But then her ghost constellation, higher self or being that whatever borrowed her, whatever this is, tells her to lie by the grave, and that the map will lead her to the body, right?
Yeah.
So she goes back. She opens the back door of the SUV. There is the map, the stone map. She strikes a match on the stone map to get light, I guess, is what she's trying to do. And then throws it down. The map says throw it down. And she does what the map tells her, throws it down, and a forest of black trees catch immediately on fire and just burn, right?
Which her dialogue, her little, or I should say monologue, I guess, really cracked me up. Like, this just in, Hellcat burns down Alaska. Iron Man says, not my fault. Hellcat says, is too. I love it. I love it.
All right, so now all of the trees have burned down, and that's when she sees a crashed SUV that looks exactly like a ghost version of the vehicle that she is near and that she has crashed, right? So there's a dead person inside with the National Geographic magazine that Patsy had. So I'm presuming that this is dead Patsy. And she actually says, it's us, it's the same truck, right? So then we get lie by the grave, right? And she interprets that, right, in the tricksy way. So she says a bunch of things that are true. And then the lie, everybody loves me. And this is another part that I absolutely love in this, because we get some vulnerability from Patsy, and it's really, really nice. And so that is the lie. And she's sort of wrestling with that, right? The lie brings the horned bear back so that she can then apologize. But out of nowhere, we get this like great moment of vulnerability where she apologizes and says she doesn't know what she's doing, and that often when things work out, they work out at the expense of others. Now, I know that I have recently had like a peak white lady experience. And so I'm in this like white woman space, and we are talking about like how she is bringing me that white women ain't scared of shit thing, which is also kind of funny. But it sounds kind of like a white woman grappling with the destructive effects of her blithe whiteness. You know, like the thing that will happen, that part of who you are hurts people, and sometimes you're not even aware of the ways in which it hurts people.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And I may be reading a bit too much into that, you know, but it just feels like a lot of the energy that Patsy has. And so this is something, of course, because I've been thinking about that. I think it's just kind of like an interesting way in which that particular line hit me. And then I love this. She is humble. I'm sorry. I'll do whatever you want. Just ask. She's not being a wise ass. She's not slapping him in the face. She's not pulling the glitter out. You
Not
know,
yet.
she's just... It's a moment. I'm not asking for a lot from Patsy. We have a moment without her doing glitter murder. So the bear says, bury the man, as she's holding the dead arm. But the dead arm, I thought, was hers, and she is not a man. And she says, okay, you mean this guy, talking about the arm that I thought was hers. That was where it all fell off the rails for me, because I'm like, did I not read any of this? So where did I go wrong?
There is a piece to fully flesh out that scene that you don't have yet.
Okay.
I will say it's a little bit of a spoiler, but I'm not revealing the big thing. The stone map has not always been a stone map.
Interesting. Okay.
And
all
the
right.
witches, or whatever you want to, the sisters, whatever you want to call them. Know him, obviously, and probably the truck that took him into the Great White North these times ago.
Interesting things. Okay, I'm interested in, but there are going to be answers about that coming.
It is now. Look, they do not make it explicit. They do not make it explicit.
Right.
You just find out some stuff later about the stone map, and then if you come back and read again, as I have, you go, "Oh shit, I think that's him." Then
That's
whatever
means. Okay.
depending on the perspective. So, yeah. It being Patsy would have been interesting, but it's not wearing her costume. And the National Geographics were kind of a surprise to her, but she figured out when they said the ice holds things over time, ice ships, skin ships, yellow bones, and yellow pages. She was like, "What?"
Yes.
So it's not her National Geographic. And
I thought it was, because it's in the car. It's in her version of the car as well.
Yeah, but it's not hers.
Okay. Fascinating stuff. I have no idea what's going on. It's all a fever dream.
That's other reason that I like. Again, it's not explicit and obvious and sort of grounded in reality, but there is actually a firm or firmish, footing going on underneath this. But it's legitimately not entirely clear, the warp and woof of it, until you get, all the way to the end.
All right. Okay, so then she whispers some weird shit at the wolf. The wolf attacks the bear. They fall into the earth, creating a hole that she pushes the truck into, and then tells the bear and the wolf to stop fucking around and get in the car. Then the map starts giving her directions without insults this time. So there's that. The bear and the wolf are running behind them, and they land at what I thought was a tower in the ice. You said it was a ship in the ice?
Yeah,
Did
it's
I
like a
miss
pirate
that?
ship. Yeah. It's like a pirate ship frozen
okay.
in the ice.
Right, and on top of which there's a man standing on one of the turrets or whatever who says they're here.
Man is doing a lot of heavy lifting there, because that dude's got tusks and a lot of hair and fur. But yes.
It's a dude of some kind. I would say
Yes.
there's dude energy there.
Oh, there's definitely masculine energy, but human? Negatory, good buddy. Negatory.
Okay. So anyway, very little of this makes any sense to me. But as long as I didn't miss anything too much, so I got the basic run of it.
She's on a journey where she has to it's really is like a magical kind of hero's journey thing. She's got to you're not going to get through it without your animal companions, so go find them and make friends. And I mean, there is again an internal kind of fairy tale logic to the thing. And this is the little bit of a journey of self-discovery that Patsy has to go on so that she is prepared to fulfill her quest in the next couple issues.
Interesting.
Although she still does
right.
it in an extremely Patsy way. So God bless us, everyone. That's what I say. Okay, we have reached the favorite part of every podcast where we talk about our various and sundry favorite parts. We break it down into art and story on In the Gutter, even though in comics they are not technically two animals, but just one.
Yes.
But for, sometimes you want to say this is the best art that I've seen, even if it's not the best story beat. And I think that's in this case, because the best art has got to be, like, there's not really a question, I don't think. It's got to be this splash page where Patsy is meeting the ice nymph constellation higher self version of herself, right? Like, it's gotta be specifically that mirror thing you were talking about, like where they're looking over each other's shoulder. Like, oh God, it's so good. It's so good.
It's really great. We both picked the same art because it does stand out so much in this issue, just how incredibly beautiful and evocative that imagery is. And I absolutely love the stuff that they're doing with constellations, like some of the, when she's looking into two different worlds, when she's having memories like in some of the previous issues, we do have a constellation, almost blueprint constellation sort of mishmash of the images that are sort of faded from that world, which makes me feel like that's when she's looking into a world that is different from the one that she is currently in, that maybe that's how she sees things. And so maybe that's where this alternate Patsy is, or if it is Patsy, we don't know who it is or what. But at the very least, it is an incredibly beautifully drawn page.
I think I think that you just accidentally further buoyed my, this isn't a different world. It's just the magical parts of our world, because like one of the most fundamental concepts of actual like ritualized magic is that which is above is that which is below, and that which is below is that which is above. So the fact that these constellations show up whenever real mystically shit is afoot makes me think, like, again, she's seeing more than she normally would, and that pushes me towards that being her higher self more than anything. And the fact that they only kind of recognize each other is funny.
Oh God, yeah. No, I mean, I think this is the kind of thing that once I'm done, I'm gonna have to go back and read it again to kind of like see. Once I have like more information,
the bigger
see
picture,
to see how my response to it is different. All right. So what is your favorite story beat?
All right, you demons, I'm doing this my way. My real name's Patsy Walker, and I was insanely popular in high school, and I get everything I ask for and some things I don't. And I always wanted to be a superhero, and everybody loves me.
Oh,
I love this.
That's a great moment.
That is 100% the moment that I fell in love with Patsy Walker, both because of the cleverness of Lie by the Grave. Well, she was like, gross, I'm not doing that. Thank God for homonyms. That's amazing.
Right.
It's also very magically.
Very clever.
It's also very magic-y, right? Because like the word spell for cast one and the word spell for make words out of letters, not a different root words. Right? Like same for grimoire and grammar. Like these are these same. So the homonym thing just made me happy. And then she just lists off all these things that are not that are true, and then one that isn't. And so I didn't put it here like so I could quote it, but the thing that just sells that moment for me as a story moment is that the next panel, the giant fuck off bear is right there, and it goes, that's the lie. Like there's no like light show or whatever. It's just not there, and then it's there, and it's telling. And her response to this very plain, that's the lie, is like, you think I don't know? Everybody's been like at pains to tell me how much they hate me since I got to Alaska. You know, like I think this is some of that self-awareness that I'm expecting to retroact. Like she looks like she doesn't care and she's not paying attention, but that's actually a defense mechanism. She cares a whole hell of a lot and is really paying attention, but has to like arm's length the world after all the shit that she has, gone through. Anyway, so that's it. That's my favorite bit. What about you, Lonnie? What's your favorite story bit?
I have to say, like, it was definitely a tight call with the one that you chose, and but I have to say, I think that my favorite was the death conversation.
Yeah.
I didn't say you can't get undead, but it's like trying to unsee something. You can't. Once it's happened, it's part of you forever. And I absolutely love that. That conversation was so deep and interesting, and I think thematically relevant to everything that's going on here. I'm really excited to see if they keep tumbling in things like that in the next couple of issues, because I would really love to see that.
I think I can say it won't be quite as sort of high-minded or philosophical as that, but I think you will see some clashes, more clashes, like between a mystical world, but also the mundane stuff that's underneath that. Because that's the other part of the mystical Alaska, is they're not separate. It's just you aren't always dialed in to both. And yeah, so more on that as watch this space. More on that as it progresses. Speaking of watching this space, we'll be back next week with Patsy Walker Hellcat number 4, Snowball Effect Part 4, in which Patsy finally meets the missing princess and discovers that she is a teenage dirtbag, baby. Until then, try again and make it pretty.
Thanks for listening to In the Gutter with Joshua Unruh and Lonnie Diane Rich. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider talking about it with your friends, leaving a review somewhere, or supporting Chipperish Media, patreon.com/Chipperish.